All right, guys, greetings and welcome to the first Fight Life Nation podcast. We're here to talk about Fighters Rep 12. We are here with George from Fighters Rep. George Francis, how's it going, my man?
It's going good, man. Appreciate you having me on, Marco. How are you today, bro?
Dude, let's break the fourth wall, dude. I normally work for you doing these interviews, and you were kind enough to come on my own channel. This is awesome, man. It's good to have you. When I first started thinking about this, and I thought about who I'd want as guests. Obviously, I want fighters. The Fight Life Nation. We talk about the fighters. We want to promote the Southern California fighters and help them get their name out there. Help them elevate their brand. And that's
Yeah.
what we're here for. But I didn't think of anyone better than you, George, because that's what you've been doing for the past, I don't know, since I've known you. Like, it's been about 4 years. Since
Thank you,
Fighters
man.
Rep
Thank
2 is
you.
when I first met you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Damn. It's been a while, man. Fighters Rep 2 was actually in 2018. So it has been 4 years.
Right.
And we lost a year and a half to COVID, man. So I mean, when you really think about it, we've only been at this for like 2.5 years, man. It's crazy.
You know what's crazy is every time I watch like the UFC or something and I see Sam Alvey, that's what it goes back to. I think about Fighters Up 2. I go, man,
Yeah.
Sam Alvey was there. I just
Yeah.
saw a post from Trevor Wells. Trevor Wells was there at Fighters Up 2. He highlighted
Yeah, man.
Fighters Up
Yeah.
3. One of the first questions I got to ask you,
Sure.
there's a lot of MMA promotions, and you started out as MMA. What made you switch over to the kickboxing model?
So um when I originally started Fighters Rep, it was just like interviewing fighters and stuff, kind of like what you're doing now. And I really enjoy like the media aspect, but I wanted to, get a little bit more involved with the fight game, and I wanted to do the original idea was I was going to call it Thai fighters, and I was going to do Muay Thai. That
All
was the
right.
original idea, and then I came out here from Florida, and I was announcing people's shows and stuff, and then I met David Denkin with Camo, and he was like, "Why don't you do a show, man? Why don't you do a show?" And David Denkin, has a way to flatter you into doing things. So I started with MMA shows just because I didn't know, there was a kickboxing amateur commission. I didn't know anything. I didn't know the ICAF was out here. I didn't know much at all. I was just getting into it. So I did an MMA show. I did a few MMA shows, as you know. We did 4 MMA shows. That was our first 4 shows were MMA shows.
Right.
And then I mean we did well, but as I got more familiar with the sport, I've always been more into boxing and striking. And I like the striking aspect. I don't like the grappling, Marco. I respect it, but I don't like it. I don't like watching it. I like watching two guys just stand up and fight it out. And I think that's what the public likes too. So I just did it because I believe in it, and I've become that person, as I've gotten older, even though I'm not that old. Don't let the gray hair fool you. But I've become that person where I'm not going to do it unless I believe in it, and I think that. We talk a lot, and I tell you, do this, do that. I mean, if you like this, do it. You got to do what you like. I love kickboxing, MMA. I'm whatever about. So for me, it was a logical progression to go into kickboxing. It's also like kind of, I guess you could say it has to do a little bit with like my ethnic background. Like Arab people love kickboxing. There's a lot of very talented strikers from the Arab world, and especially like North Africa, Morocco, and places like that. So I'm just a big fan of striking and kickboxing.
That what's crazy is when you started, I was one of the doubters. You switched. I thought you had a great thing going. I go, why does he want to go to striking? Because I didn't
Yeah.
understand the community. I didn't know any of the fighters. I remember I have you as a Facebook friend, and you post things on Facebook. It would say stuff like, "Who's your favorite striker?" And it's just like, man, I have no idea who any of these guys. Like, you would name names, and I go, I have no idea. I gotta be honest, George. I think it's the
Yeah.
best thing going right now. I
Thank you,
think,
man.
and I don't mean this to disparage any other promotions. I'm very happy to work with all these other promotions covering their fighters. They've been good to me. Everyone I've worked with has been good to me. I don't have any bad stories to tell you about anybody.
Yeah.
That being said, having an all striking promotion, it just seems like I know Muay Thai does it too, and they have their own. It's not too different, but I like the way it is in the kickboxing model. I like how there's not any clinching. So I know in some instances there's going to be Muay Thai guys that clinch and they make the fight kind of a clinch fest, and that can be boring. I don't see that as much, but in kickboxing, you don't get that at all. I mean, you
Right.
get that
Right.
one hand clinch, you get one strike, and then Dan Stell comes in there and breaks you guys up. Breaks the
Right.
fighters
Right.
up.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I really ever since it switched over, it grew on me, man. It's from seeing Wilson Hoff, from seeing Oscar Moeller, from seeing Evan Bolton, guys like David Pacheco, all these names that have fought coming in and out of Fighters Rep. Edgar Barbary. Edgar
Yeah.
Barbary was on Fighters Rep 4. He was an MMA guy.
Oh
And then he
yeah.
came and he did striking. And I mean, I think that looked better on him. I
Well,
think
because he trains out of the yard, so he's a Muay Thai guy. He's
right.
a Muay Thai guy who jumped into MMA probably because he just wanted more opportunities, right? And that's kind of, I'm glad you're saying all this because I feel like it's a great way to segue into the fact that it's just another opportunity. That's
Right.
all it is. So instead of these strikers getting pigeonholed into MMA because there's no striking shows, right now they can do Muay Thai because there's some Muay Thai shows. They can do MMA, or they could come to me and do kickboxing. And where I'm different is I'm hardcore, man. I'm a specialist. I'm not going to do mixed rule sets. I'm not going to give you Muay Thai. I'm sorry. If you want to do Muay Thai, you can go fight at a Muay Thai show. I'm going to do kickboxing. That's what you're going to get. If you don't like kickboxing, I'm not the promotion for you. And there are a lot of coaches that tell me, George, why don't you do Muay Thai, man? Please do Muay Thai. Like they're Muay Thai traditionalists. They're hardcore about it the way I'm hardcore about kickboxing. I just tell them, no, man. But, at the end of the day, it's great. It's kind of like, it's not like bare knuckle as far as the style, but it's like bare knuckle in that it's now another opportunity. Maybe I think bare knuckle is barbaric. Maybe you think bare knuckle is barbaric, but it's a lane. And a lot of the guys, that's their lane, man. And so, for me, it's all about, I think it's great because it creates more opportunity for the fighters and they need more opportunities.
Uh, that was going to actually be my next question is what has been the striking community's response to you going into doing kickboxing? Were they happy to have another outlet outside of like the MMA? I know a lot of guys that don't like to wrestle at all,
Yeah.
and so, but they have to, cause that's what's out there. That's what I think that's when you're coming out of school, and you want to be a fighter, you got a couple options. You can go box or you can go MMA.
Yeah.
What was their response when you presented this other option?
Um, I think a lot of people I think the majority of people love it. They like it or they love it. But you also have a real segment that, just why don't you do Muay Thai or we prefer MMA or you know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm not in this to make everyone happy. I'm in this to do what I love and to create opportunities for people that also love this thing. And as you can see, I mean, from our growing promotion, we're still relatively young, like we said at the beginning of this thing, what, 2.5 years active, if you really think about it, not even,
Right.
maybe 2.5, 3. But what I think what we've done in that time span uh, has been, nothing short of remarkable, man. I mean, our last 3 shows, even our show before the pandemic, sold out, and people were I thought it was a very exciting show. Did I
Yeah.
lose you?
No, no, no. I'm here. I just put you on the
Oh,
screen.
okay,
I
okay.
don't really like staring at my face, man.
So I
It's
guess
annoying. Right now I'm working on a technical difficulty. Either way,
I
it kind of
see.
gets on my nerves. I was trying to figure out a way to get away from it. Either way, my next question that I gotta
Sure.
ask, man. You've been doing fights now for a little while. You've gone through a lot of different challenges. What kind of challenge has this pandemic brought you, man?
Oh, man. So I'm gonna get pretty transparent here. I don't think a lot of people are gonna love what I have to say, but maybe a lot of people will. It's shown me that first off, that this particular state we're in California, handled I think, the pandemic extremely poorly. Um, I lost a lot of close friends in the fight game to this pandemic because of the way it was handled. These were people that basically survived mentally off of the fight game, and when it was taken away from them in the form of this lockdown, then they just kind of spiraled out of control. Um, the pandemic has also shown me that everything that people told me, and I'm not a native of California. I'm a native of Florida, but I've been here for 7.5 years. But I kind of draw my own conclusions. But it did show me that everything that people told me about this state being extremely business hostile was true. Um, I believe Fighters Rep has succeeded despite this state, despite the government of this state. And I'm constantly grinding away and fighting and clawing. And I think in other states, I think the majority of other states, as a matter of fact, I would not have to go through the BS that I went here. As you know, like I told you at the beginning of this, I mean, we lost a year and a half where we couldn't do shows. We were technically allowed to do shows, but when you're telling an upcoming show or a regional show that you can't have an audience, then you're just telling them it's basically impossible to do a show, because where are they going to have revenue? Where are they going to bring the revenue in from?
Right.
So it would have just been me burning money. And, I'm not the type to just light my money on fire, and I wouldn't do that to my sponsors. And, the fighters would have hated the experience of having to get tested every 3 minutes. And, even recently, I mean, they messed with this show. They messed with this show coming up. The government at the last show, they said that for a mega event, the capacity is 1,000. And if you have any more than that, then you have to check every single person's vaccination status and test. And most people in California are pissed off about that. So I had to go at the last show and reduce capacity below 1,000. Because if you're over that, then you have to check everybody's status, including the fighters. And the majority of the fighters are not vaccinated because they don't believe in this shit, And I'm not speaking for myself. I'm just saying the way it is.
Right.
And then this show, I announced this show. I'm thinking, okay, the capacity is going to be 1,000 again. And then these goofball, politicians say, oh, it's got to go down to 500 because of Omicron. So so then I went on a ticket voiding and canceling spree, removed VIP tables from the website, removed reserved seating from the website. I mean, to try to get it down to less than 500 people, which would have been horrible, but I was willing to do it to keep the fighters in the business going. And then luckily, like this week on Monday, they announced that we're back up to 1,000, right?
Right.
So now I put the tables back on, but we're a week out from the show. I put the reserved seating and everything else back on. We're a week out. Is this going to affect my sales? I think it already has, but we'll see. It looks like it's still selling pretty well, but it's a horrible, horrible business environment. Besides the fact that they take a ton of taxes in this state, it's got the highest income tax rate in the nation. And you know how much it costs just to live here and buy gas and everything else. So it's just
Correct.
one thing I've really learned during this pandemic is this was a very bad choice on my part to move to this state in order to run a business, And I didn't move here to run a business, but I've learned that this is not a good state to do business. It's
You
probably
know
the
what?
worst. It's probably
Yeah.
the worst. It's probably the worst, if we're being
What
honest.
you're saying is a popular opinion right now. Actually, a lot of people might not like to hear it,
Yeah.
but it's actually a popular opinion. A
And
lot
you
of
know what,
businesses
Marco?
are leaving.
I hate to cut you off, but it's really unfortunate because we have so much talent here, and that's because the weather's good and the population is huge. I mean, it's the most populous state in the nation, so you're going to have a lot of fighters and a lot of Muay Thai gyms and all that stuff. But they just make it near impossible to do business here.
Oh man, I totally get where you're coming from. I know personally, I'm not a big fan of all the policies that they've created. Uh, it just sucks because there's not. It doesn't seem like there's much I can do. You just kind of got to grin and bear with it for a lot of these goofiness.
Unless you decide to leave, which is what a
Right.
lot of people and companies are doing. I mean, I saw a statistic that since the pandemic, over 360,000 people left California. It was the state that lost the most people, and it's for a reason. And second place was New York for the same reasons that I mentioned. And the ones that are gaining all these population are my native state of Florida and Texas, places where there's no income tax and where they encourage businesses.
Yep, that's definitely those states seem to have it better run, at least from a business side. Uh,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's people who feel differently, but let's be more positive, man. Let's talk about if you're at home and you don't want to come to the fights because maybe you are afraid of Omicron and maybe you have some pre-existing conditions. You can join the Fighters Rep YouTube channel and watch it for only $9.99.
that's right. That's right.
There's gonna be links in the description to FightersRep.com where you can get to there.
Appreciate
Also,
it, Mark.
yes, and you can also get your tickets still. There'll be links that you can get your tickets on FightersRep.com. Uh,
Yeah.
if you mention one of the fighters, they get credit for the event that you're going to go see them. It's always helpful for everybody. Uh, let's get into the fights, man. Let's talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
Fighters Rep 12. We've had enough of this disgusting state of California talk. And
And
let's
I'm not, I'm hopeful that things will change for the better one day. I hope, but
you know what?
it's just right now,
Right.
it's not good.
I'm a native Californian. I love it here. I love the weather, but I don't blame anybody who says that it sucks business wise because I mean, they're really dragging businesses down,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
see it in the fight game. You see it.
yeah.
That's where I can see it.
And it's
I
sad,
see
Marco, because we have like I said, we have so many talented fighters here, but how many pro events are here?
right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
How many pro? If you go to MMA, how many pro MMA events outside? Like
right,
there's not a whole lot.
right.
So before we go on to the fights that are actually at Fighters Rep 12, one last thing I want to talk about is what do you think your value is as a show? Because I can tell you personally, I went to the UFC. I
Yeah.
went to UFC 270. I went to go see Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane.
Hmm.
It was at the Honda Center. It was sold out. It was maybe 16,000 people, 17,000. I don't know how much the Honda Center actually fits,
Yeah.
but I can tell you personally. Uh, who's the 125-pound guy that just lost his title? Brandon Moreno.
Yeah.
Outside of Brandon Moreno's fight, outside of that fight, when the crowd was lit, there was no comparison to a Fighters Rep card. And I don't mean that because I work with you. I don't mean that because I
Wow,
take
man.
photos with you. I mean that because when you go to a Fighters Rep event, it's action from start to finish. And I love the UFC. I am a UFC fanatic, but there was no comparison. That crowd was dead. There was no excitement in the air. I know when I go to a Fighters Rep event, there's going to be fight after fight. So how when a person goes to spend their dollars, how do you think their value is they're going to get out of your show?
Well, I hope that they feel the way you feel. I mean, to be honest, I didn't know you felt that way. I knew you liked the show and I knew you thought, the fights were great and we're improving every time, but I didn't know that you felt that strongly about it. And I'm really glad to hear that. I mean, especially considering you don't just work with me. I know you shoot photos with a lot of different promotions and you're getting yourself out there. I encourage that. But even though I prefer you to just do stuff with me because I like having you around. But that's amazing. As far as value for money, I mean, I don't think you're going to get better value for money than Fighters Rep, especially at this level. I love the way UFC markets, and I think that's part of the reason that people are going to get a lot of value at Fighters Rep, because the culture is similar, right? At least I like to think so. I really like to market the guys. I really like to get people to know who they are as a person, to really, be able to relate to them. That's why we do like so many interviews and stuff, and you've helped us with some of that and videos. But I think you're going to get a lot of value for money from us, maybe more so in some cases than MMA events, because again, it's in our rule set, it's two guys standing and fighting. There's no clinching, there's no lull in the action. Guys got to go out there and get it. They've got 2 minutes as amateurs per round. They've got 3 minutes as pros per round, and there's only 3 rounds unless it's a title fight. So you got to go out there and get it, Marco. If you don't throw enough punches, if you're not active enough or kicks, you're just going to lose the fight. And then another thing I really take pride in is the fact that I'm not bringing guys in from the outside too much, right? I mean, we did have Justin Moss. Occasionally we'll have an out-of-state person, but I'm building our talent right here in California.
Yeah.
We have enough talent here to rival any region in the world. And because of that, and because of my proximity to it, right? I know who's good. I know what level these guys are at. I know their trainers. I know their styles. I know it better than anyone in California. I'm confident. I'm confident in saying that nobody, and people may dislike this. I know people dislike this. Nobody will be able to match a fight the way I can in California as far as striking goes. I'm not speaking on MMA, but I'm speaking on striking. Because I know these guys. I know these gyms. I know how they fight. And it's because of that I'm able to make these matchups that are 50-50. And that's another part of the culture I take pride in that I think you see in the UFC, right? The UFC, the reason I think it's surpassed boxing in such a short amount of time, it's only been around 30 years or so, and it's surpassing boxing, is because you have the best fighting the best. Right, Marco?
Right. No, I agree.
In boxing, you fight 20 tomato cans until you fight, somebody with a pulse. In the UFC, you got to earn it. You got to earn it all the way up. And with FightersRep, it's the same mentality. I mean, listen, and I don't even care if you win or lose. What I care about is you go in there and you give it a go, man. You go in there and you fight your heart out. And if you win or you lose, as long as you go in there and you fight hard and you're professional, you don't act like an animal, then I want you back. I want you back. And so, it's a combination of those things, good matchups. I know these guys. I know how they're going to match up against this other guy or this other camp. And it's going to be a war, as you saw from the last FightersRep. I mean, all these fights were, neck and neck. And if somebody does come in and get a quick knockout or something, it's because that person showed up on the night. Right. That person showed up on the night,
Right.
But when you look at these fights on paper and these guys, I try to make them as 50-50 as possible. And
all right, I had to put my face back on. I had to tell you this story. This is the reason why I stopped covering boxing, and I have no interest in going back. Doing Fight Life Nation, I've been thinking about going back to boxing. As far as like just the more content, the better. That was my idea. But here was my bad experience. So when I first started, I met some really cool people. They were with a group of management team called Santa Cruz Management Team.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Mexican Promotions. But it was from Santa Cruz management team, and I think they also called themselves Mexican Promotions. And it was Leo Santa Cruz's guys. They're all Leo Santa Cruz's friends, and then the fighters who fought under him as well. And they were cool enough. They gave me a pass to go to their event, and I was stoked. He was having his first event for he called it Last Round Promotions. It was going to be his company. And I was stoked to go, and I went, and there was more media for this event. And let me just tell you for a second, guys, this is where we need to improve in the local MMA and striking communities. You really got to get the more media. And I'm not talking about you, George. I'm talking about the media out there. You got to start covering these fighters because they put on the show. I go to this Last Round Promotions card, and I'm not trying to dog them. I'm saying this is the culture of how boxing goes. I go, and they had all their guys. They flew in guys from Mexico. And I'm 100% sure they were from Mexico because I looked at the card at the score sheet, and all their guys won in either first round knockouts, second round knockouts, or an unanimous decision where the other guy just didn't belong. And I mean, there was a couple fights where it was like, where did you get this guy? Did this guy just
Right.
deliver bread in the morning and come here? You know,
Right.
this guy the postman. You know, and after that event, and you see all this Rugamaroo, all these people there to cover it, and it just seemed like a big facade. And I do love boxing. I love boxing. I love to watch it. I don't follow it as well as I used to, but it is one of the sports that I'm really into.
Yeah.
I think on the local level, it's dead. I think I think it's nothing like going to a Fighters Rep event. It's nothing like going to some of these local MMA events. It's not 50-50 booking, and I think that really hurts. But you know what is 50-50 booking is Fighters Rep. Once again, before we start, I just want to mention one more time, if you're not going to be in attendance, if you can't make it to Seal Beach, FightersRep.com, you can join the YouTube channel, $9.99. You can buy your tickets there if you can make it. You're gonna love it. There's clubs right down the street, so as soon as the fights are over, you can go to the bar. You can go to the club on 2nd Street. It's an awesome place to go have a fight.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of these events, they take place in a hotel where it's in an area where there's nothing going on around it. This is in an area where there's a lot of room to move around. You don't have to worry. I actually like the venue. This is an awesome place to go. I highly recommend FightersRep.com. Get your tickets while they're still available. I do believe they'll sell out. I don't care what you say, George. You sold out the last few events, and the fighters aren't changing as far as like the excitement of the event. I don't see you completely wiping the cards.
Yeah, no, I actually think this is a better. I mean, this card is ridiculous. I mean, and we got more. You know,
once again, I'm gonna break the fourth wall. And I've been interviewing a lot of these guys, so I know that there was fights scheduled that have fallen off, and those fights will be awesome when they get put on, and eventually, I'm sure they'll get put on. The fights that are still on this card are amazing. So we're gonna start with a couple fights. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not as familiar with these guys. I know Brandon Washington, or is it Brandon West? He kind of confused me with his interview.
He's Washington, but he likes to be known as West. So
I'm good with that. Reason. Hey, Brandon West versus William Acosta. What are you looking forward to in this early fight? You think this is?
I love this fight. You know, I love this fight, and these are beginners, basically. You know, these guys are novices. I mean, Brandon is over 40, but you know, you've seen him. He's in incredible shape. He's built like great personality. He's built like a 20-year-old, and he fought for us at his first fight. So this is actually his second fight. He's not a total beginner. But you know, he's built like he's 20. He's completely shredded. He's ready to go. And this is a guy who, when he fought for us the first time, I said, I got to have him back, because he fought with every drop of blood in his heart, man. He wanted to fight. He just wanted to fight. And he's not going to go out. He's not going to go out like a punk either. You know, you're going to have to beat him.
Well, I know his opponent is coming from Team Matador.
Right,
right. And I'm learning these gyms fight by fight. You know, I don't know all these gyms 100% right off the bat. Team Matador has been pretty impressive, man, in the MMA and kickboxing scene. They had a great entry in the Fighters Rep 11, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But I look forward to that fight, because I want to see how this young man that we met, Brandon West, how he does against a guy from Team Matador. That interests me.
You know what?
Fight, go ahead.
Well, I didn't really get a chance to talk about William Acosta too much, but you know, he's a debut. He's a debut, and he's, like you said, out of Matador training, and that's Marcos Bonilla's team. And you know, we didn't know much about them, but I know Marcos Bonilla is a solid guy. He's a solid fighter. And when I knew he got a gym going together and he just wanted his guys to fight and get experience, I said, hell yeah. And that's where we found Melvin Guerra at the last fight, right?
Yeah.
Melvin Guerra was one of the best debuts that we've had. So
dude, he was the last fight of the night.
And then he came out and he showed out. You know, he almost knocked the kid through the rope. So I said to myself, you know, anyone Marcos Bonilla's got for me, I'm open to it.
All right, man. That's I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna pretend if I know the guys or not, and I know the camp. And I know Matador is a great camp. I'm looking forward to that fight. The next fight on the card, you got Alejandro Gonzalez and Christian. Help me out with his name, Zalir.
Zoller, I think it's Zoller.
Zoller, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So BP MMA, is that Buena Park MMA?
Buena Park MMA, Coach Pot, Coach Matt Johnson. Coach Pot is, listen, Coach Pot, Cambodian American, learned Pradal Saray, which is the traditional kickboxing from the region from his father, was a fighter in the past, was a very good fighter, and is one of the best striking coaches there is, period, and is a legend in Long Beach. He's a legend. And him combined with Coach Matthew Johnson out there in Buena Park MMA. I mean, you saw it. There, David Marquez's coach. David Marquez looked
Ooh.
amazing at the last event.
Oh yes.
They had another kid, I believe it was Ignacio was his name, if I can remember, who had an absolute war with Rage's kid, Raymond Martinez,
Yeah.
at the last event. So these are, this kid's out of that camp. He's making his debut out of that camp, and he's fighting Christian Zoller, a kid out of another pretty good, solid camp that's also growing with a lot of experience. And I look forward to this fight, man. It's going to be a great fight.
That sounds like it's going to be a great fight. The next fight, it's Joseph Sanchez from Renzo, Gracie, LA, and he's taking on Enrique Cortez from Blackbeard Boxing and Kickboxing. And just to let you know, I actually went to Blackbeard Kickboxing. I was invited down to their gym.
That's right.
It was a few weeks ago. I got to watch him. I don't know how I got so lucky, but I got to watch a bunch of guys just go over there and train because they invited Wilson Ha. They invited another fighter on the card, Vinnie Famaleri. It was a great sparring event. It was pretty neat to watch these guys all fight. And so I got a lot to say about all these guys. Enrique Cortez, I can tell you from seeing him in person, he actually at the training, he was very scary. Like he looked like an intimidating person. Don't get me wrong, when I talked to him, he seemed like a really cool guy. I'm just talking about he's built like an intimidating person.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see how that goes off in a fight. On this particular day, I didn't get to catch as much action with him, but I definitely want to see him in this event. Can you tell us more about Joseph Sanchez?
Absolutely. So again, Enrique does look the part. I mean, looks like a big, strong guy. He's had a few amateur MMA fights. He's had an amateur striking fight. He's 1-0 as an amateur striker. He's had 4 MMA fights. He's also, it looks like he's done one of these PKBs. Joseph Sanchez, he's done PKBs, the point kickboxing stuff, and he's done 4 of them. So, he's got a lot of striking experience. I also heard that he was the sparring partner for Ozzy Diaz out of CMMA, a guy who just won, he just won the Lights Out championship, I believe, at middleweight. He was 2-0 in Bellator before that, knocked out both guys. I mean, Ozzy Diaz he's fighting at LFA next, and I think he's fighting for a title. So Joseph is a kid that Ozzy has been sparring with at CMMA, and Joseph, I believe comes from like a Gracie school, more of a grappling school, but he's been really putting in a lot of work as far as striking goes. He's been going to these PKBs. It's his first chance to showcase his ability in the amateur ranks as an amateur fighter, because the PKBs, it's the point kickboxing, it's beneath amateur.
Right.
Then there's amateur and they're pro. That's how I look at it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. PKB, you got to pay to actually go fight on those, right?
Usually you have to pay to fight in those PKBs, which I think is
I guess.
I think is a little silly, but everybody does their thing,
Right.
But Joseph, if you're sparring Ozzy Diaz, you're talented, and we all know that Jason Caldwell's Blackbeard Kickboxing is talented. That's where David Pacheco comes from. Right. Jason Caldwell is obviously a veteran himself, and we've got 2 or 3 other kids fighting out of that camp. So that's going to be a great fight, man.
One interesting thing when I was talking,
and they're big,
right,
they're big guys.
Big. Yeah,
big guys.
One thing that was interesting about Enrique, and I knew you were going to love it when he said it, man. He goes, I love kickboxing, and I'm so glad to be putting on kickboxing. I
Yeah.
go, oh, man, my boss is gonna like hearing that. He loves
Your boss.
kickboxing too. So that
I'm
was,
not your boss. We just
you know
work
what I
together.
mean,
Come
man.
on.
When we go to the shows.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, brother. All right, the next fight, and I'm going just off of the same sheet I used to interview, but I really think this could be a main event. If this was an all amateur show, I really think this is a main event fight, and that's Edgar Zaragoza versus Melvin Guerra.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
I cannot tell you how big a fan I am of Zaragoza. I went to Brood 9. You were actually training there that day.
I was, yeah.
I went to Brood 9, and it was my first time experiencing him. And you could just see the kid was real. He was into what he was doing. Sometimes you see these guys, and they're there for show. It seems like, and I don't mean that to disparage anybody. They just don't. They don't seem 100% into it. He seemed 100% into it, and his coach seemed 100% into him.
Oh yeah.
His coach was one of the coolest dudes I ever met. I really
Yeah.
like that guy.
Part of the
Eisenhower,
reason
right?
part of the reason I went to go train there.
Yeah, he's one of the coolest guys, and he's had a couple guys on our on Fighters Rep. Mark Kamishki is the other guy.
Mark Kamishki was there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they're a good camp, man. I really like watching their fighters. I like watching Edgar. His
Mhm.
first fight against Gavi Myth. I remember I went to Gavi's camp and I took pictures with Gavi. I interviewed Gavi. I got to watch him train, and it was before the fight. Gavi fought for Fighters Rep at Fighters Rep. I believe it was 8. And so I was familiar with him, and I thought, I kind of favored him because I had seen him fight before. He did get knocked out that event, but he looked good. In training, he's a big kid for his size. He was a bigger kid than Edgar.
Yeah.
But I remember the coach, Gavi's coach, was telling him, like, you got to create space. You don't have to engage every time. And then when we went and watched Edgar, I went and watched Edgar train, and I just saw that kid was in his training partner's face. Like, he never gave him a breath.
Right.
And I just knew. I didn't say anything. I don't go and talk about other camps, but I go, this kid's gonna give Gavi some trouble. And Gavi went out there and caught him early. Gavi caught him with a punch, knocked him down. He rang his bell, and Edgar showed poise, man. And Edgar was like a house on fire.
Yeah, Edgar's a cardio machine, man. He's a cardio machine. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen anyone fight like that at any of our
not. There's been some really guys that fight with they could put a pace on you, but Edgar is the next level. Edgar seems like a sprinter. Like,
he doesn't stop.
One thing, yeah, that's the one thing I like about Fighters Rep is it's a 3-round fight. You get 3 rounds. What is it? 3 minutes? Correct me if I'm wrong.
2 minutes for the amateurs, 3 for the pros. Yeah.
And he sprints for 9 minutes and he puts on a show. He went off. He fought Hector Vergara the last fight.
That's
Once
right.
again,
That was a great fight. That was a great fight.
Hector's camp, and I'm a Hector fan. I will watch Hector fight any day of the week. You bring that kid back, I will buy his ticket.
Me too.
He's exciting. I talked to Hector. I told him. The only thing I told him, I said, man, Edgar looked great the first fight. And he goes, "It's gonna be a war." He goes, "The fans are gonna love this fight." And he was right, man. Once again, though, Edgar Zaragoza put on just a pace that Hector couldn't keep up with. And I mean, there's no shame in that. Like, Edgar's that next level. But then let's just talk about Melvin Guerra. Came out, did what he. What's crazy is I rewatched that fight. I try to do a little review to make sure I'm not talking out of my butt. I want to make sure I know everybody.
Right.
I remember watching the fight. I was taking pictures that day, and when you snap the pictures, you don't see everything. It's really hard when you ask me, like, what do you think of that fight, to recall it. That's why I'm really glad I'm glad Ivan goes over the fights with you afterwards, because Ivan can watch the whole event, and he's recording too. He's keeping up with that social media, but he's got probably a way better view than me. I'm not really following the fights. Alejandro Flores fought really good against Melvin Guerra. Even though he didn't, he ended up getting beat. He started, like, he hit that Superman punch, and he was dynamic, and it was pretty neat to see. But Melvin Guerra, he looked next level towards the end of that fight.
He's heavy-handed and he's got good boxing. He's got a dog in him, man. And if you stand up to him, he's gonna fight you and he's gonna try to knock you out. And that's what's so interesting about this fight, right? Is you got 2 guys like that, I would say if one has an advantage, if Edgar has better cardio, then maybe Melvin has more power. So this is a scary fight, man. This is a scary, scary fight, man. I'm telling you, this is not this fight. And just as you mentioned, I mean, Vergara fought a great fight, and he's 100% welcome back anytime against when he fought against Edgar. Same with Alejandro, fantastic fight at the last event. And I like that you remember those guys because win or lose, like I said before, as long as you put on a good fight, that's all I care about. But yeah, this fight is this is gonna be a crazy fight, and to think Melvin only has one fight and Edgar only has two,
Right.
and
It's
you've seen the level they're at. And it's just they must be training their asses off.
off the top of your head, it looks like they are going to be wearing headgear, right? So they are both
Yeah,
still pretty young in the game. It's
right.
crazy that I would tell you that, but I'm not making it up. If you buy your ticket and you're going to the event and you miss this fight, you are missing. If you don't show up in time, you are missing what could be the fight of the night.
Yeah,
I would highly suggest showing up because I don't know where they're going to put this fight on the card. I know the IKF has a lot to say about that. Um, I would not miss this fight. I really do think this is going to be a fight that could contend for fight of the night.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Man, I'm so stoked for that fight. I can't tell you. I can't. I could talk for a half an hour on how good that fight is.
I love how you're like asking me about all the undercard fights. Like you're so hardcore and you're excited about them the way I am. I mean, these are such good fights.
Oh man, yeah. Well, you know what I think was good, and this goes back to like I understand someone who doesn't know striking, and they see these names and they don't know the names and they don't understand. I've had the benefit of being there for Fighters Rep 5 till now, and
Yeah, yeah,
I've seen these guys develop, and like I say, you've seen when they first start, and you see when they're. I've seen Oscar Moeller now. We've seen him headline. We've seen him not headline. We've seen him now. He's fighting for a title. I really got into these strikers, and to tell you the truth, covering them also in Muay Thai, it helps me keep on track on even more of them, and it becomes a fan. You're like when I
yeah,
follow them
yeah,
on Instagram and I follow their fights. Uh, I look forward to it, man, and I can hype it because I love these guys. Like I love the way they
yeah,
fight, and I haven't seen one that has a bad attitude yet. Like I've met some that probably got bad management or bad coaching as far as like maybe someone could tell them like, hey, be a little smarter about certain things. But as far as like their attitude towards the fight game and how hard they try, uh, I mean, a lot of these fighters are just gems, and it's just awesome.
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to Christian Tobias, man. Christian Tobias versus, forgive me if I say this name wrong, Robert
Payo,
Palo. Payo?
Robert
I
Payo.
figured it was gonna be
Yeah, yeah,
Payo because Gallo, but I go, I don't know, man.
yeah, yeah.
Christian Tobias, he's 0-1-1, but
Right.
I can
But
tell.
but he's all 1-1. But I mean, is he not an absolute delight to watch?
Yeah, let me tell people who haven't watched Fighters Rep 11, you can go back on their YouTube channel and you can watch Fighters Rep 11 for free. Look it up. His fight, he fell behind in the fight.
In
Uh,
the first round, he got wobbled bad.
yeah, his bell was rung, and to come back from that, I mean, that shows heart.
Right, right,
So,
right.
so, so, I mean, if you watch the fight, like you said, he's a dog, and I can't wait to see him. Can you tell me something about Robert Bile?
Robert Bayo's out of Claudio
Moreno Muay Thai.
Moreno's, yeah, Claudio Moreno's Muay Thai. They gave us Alberto Vallecillo, who fought Sammy Caceres in a very good fight.
I love that
And
fight.
yeah, and I can tell by the way that Vallecillo fought that this camp isn't messing around. They've been training constantly throughout the pandemic. They go to parks, they get it done, they do whatever they got to do. I mean, it's a real throwback. Is Claudio Moreno getting these kids ready to fight? And I think it's a great fight. I think it's a great fight for both of these kids. They're still kind of finding their footing, and it's going to be exciting. I mean, as you saw with Tobias, he got his bell rung. He woke up and he came to fight. And they're cutting their teeth. They're cutting their teeth, and they're extremely fun to watch. They're dynamic, but they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable because they're still cutting their teeth. And it's going to be a great fight. These two are still at the early stages of their amateur career, and it's a perfect matchup.
Man, that sounds like a fun one. All right, I'm looking at this list, and I want to skip down because a couple of these fights I can't wait for, and I just want to go over one more guy that we talked about first. Luis Moreno. He's fighting
Oh my God,
Robert
man.
Castro. Luis Moreno. He had the fight against Jonathan Montoya. Before we go into him as a fighter, all right, because he's awesome. Let me talk about how great this cat is. This guy is just a good dude. We had the open workout on Saturday, this past Saturday, and I did an interview with him. And the first time he came to open workout, because he's been in an open workout for FightersRep 10, he came, and he was a lot more serious at that time. And not to say he's less serious now, but it was just maybe I was being less talkative to people. But he just seemed more serious. So when I came to do the interview, I was kind of nervous, and I get nervous doing interviews still, no matter how many of these I do. Even talking to you, I get nervous talking. Like I'm not a talker. I just really like spotlighting these fighters. Luis Moreno just saved the day. Dude, that guy has personality for days. He's actually going to be a guest here on Fight Life Nation on
nice.
Hopefully before, I want to get it out before Monday, so that way you can check him out. We can talk, and when you can get ready for his fight coming up. Let's talk about Luis Moreno versus Jonathan Montoya when he fought him, and what we can expect from this next fight.
Listen, I mean, just go watch that fight, Luis Moreno versus Jonathan Montoya at FightersRep 10. I mean, that was an absolute bloodbath, and Luis Moreno ended up getting finished in that fight by Jonathan Montoya, but he didn't go quietly at all. He almost lasted to decision. That was 3 rounds of hell. And Luis Moreno is an extremely high level jiu-jitsu player, I guess you want to call him, extremely high level grappler. And he's been honing his striking since before that, and since that fight, and I think he learned a lot in that fight. And obviously with Coach Rage, behind him, and Matthias, the strength and conditioning coach that they have there, you've seen how Luis looks. He's looking trim, he's looking slim, he's looking great. And he already looks more fluid to me. And this is just going to be a hell of a fight. I mean, he's fighting this kid, Robert Castro, out of this strength and mobility gym where Alejandro fought out of against Melvin Guerra at the last
so that
event.
that is the same gym.
Right. And Castro's had 4 MMA fights. So, I mean, these are 2 experienced amateurs that are going to go in there, and there's not going to be any gear. There's not going to be nothing. This is going to be a great scrap, because Luis doesn't back down. And I don't think Castro's going to either.
Man, I look forward to that fight. I look forward to talking to Luis. I can't wait to have him, Luis Moreno, have him on the podcast, because
he's a lot of fun. I
was surprised. I thought he had just one of the best personalities. And before we leave him, let's talk about Coach Rage for a few seconds. How often is it to deal with Coach Rage?
He's really one of the best people to deal with in the fight game, man. He's one of the few coaches that I could say, hey, what do you think about your guy fighting? We want it. Okay. Because, besides the fact that he doesn't care and he has a lot of confidence in his system and thinks his guys are going to win, I think there's a level of trust there, with me and a lot of these coaches, especially Coach Rage. He knows I'm not going to put his guy in a fight that his guy can't win. It's going to be a 50-50 fight. You're going to have to earn it. But, he knows he's going to have a good fight. Same thing with Ray last time. I mean, Raymond Martinez made his kickboxing debut at the last event. And, oh my goodness, it was such an exciting fight. It was such a great fight. And the kid was the absolute epitome of engage your rage, which is Coach Raging's striking system and philosophy. And it was a blast. People were oohing and eyeing. These kids had headgear on, And people in the audience, you could hear them oohing and eyeing because this kid was just coming for it, And if you guys don't know, Coach Rage's philosophy is basically one bell. We don't want to go to the second round. We want to finish you off. And so, Coach Rage is fantastic to work with. If you like great fights, if you like technique, but brutality, come watch Rage's fighters compete at FightersRep.
That's awesome, man. Okay, let me backtrack just a little bit. The next fight on the list, and this is another one I really think is gonna have a chance to be fight of the night because of who's in it, and that's Cameron Spencer. I cannot tell you how high I am on Cameron Spencer. The first fight, when I saw him come out, he's another kid. When I met him, he was at the open workout. I think you booked that fight like the day before or at the open workout, however it worked. FightersRep 11, and he was shy. He was super he didn't want to, he was timid on the mic. When we did the interview, he was real quick. It was only like a minute interview, and I didn't know what to make of him. And you can only see so much at an open workout. They're just hitting mitts. Man, when that fight started, he was built he's built like a fighter, and he was impressive in that fight. And I can't wait to see this next one.
Yeah, he's a big, strong kid. He's got, a great coach in Coach Hung out there at Hardworks Fitness. He's got great training partners, Evan Bolton being one of them. He got the knockout in his debut with us. He's had a fight since then.
Right.
He's coming back. He likes kickboxing better than Muay Thai. I've asked him about it.
Yeah, he told me that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big kid. He's a 205 or something like that. I mean, he's a big kid. Right. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And he's fighting a guy out of Bas Rutten's gym in Dylan Ludwig. So, Bas Rutten's gym, I mean, these kids coming out of Bas Rutten's gym are no joke. I mean, at the last event, this was actually the fight I was most worried about in matching. We had, Mark Kamishki go up against Gabriel Basso.
6'5".
Right. So Mark Kamishki had 3 fights already as far as striking goes. And he was, he had a winning record. And, and Bas Rutten said, we want to fight. That was the only fight available. And they took it. And Gabriel Basso had never fought before. And I said, and I called Bas Rutten. I said, look, Bas, I don't know about this fight, man. That I'm a little worried. Kamishki's 6'5". He's got experience. Kind of tell me why you think this fight is okay, And he told me, Bas Rutten basically just told me, just trust me, George. This kid is a genius, and in 6 months he's picked up more than guys pick up in years. And when Bas Rutten tells you to shut the hell up and make the fight, you take him for his word. He's been around. And Basso went out there again in his debut fight against a experienced Kamishki who's 6'5" and finished him with a body shot. So
he put it on him that fight.
Right. So Dylan Ludwig has had a fight, but it was like a smoker type fight.
Okay.
Cameron, on the other hand, he's 2-1. It's a similar situation. So let's see.
I can tell you in his second fight, because the first fight he looked dominant, and then the second fight, the Muay Thai fight, I was photographing it. It was a Muay Thai event. He got tested. He fought a kid. I don't remember the guy's camp, but it was a great camp that the guy was out of. I want to say no, it wasn't the body shop. It was a good camp though, and he got tested. And so when I saw he was back on the card, I go, man, I can't wait to see this kid fight again. Yeah. This is going to be his third fight. Hopefully the last one that he has to wear headgear. I'm not a fan of the headgear, but I understand why they got to wear it. But yeah,
the headgear comes off in your 4th fight. So once you've had 3 fights, then you can take the headgear and shin guards off in the 4th fight if you both agree to it, which typically people do. The only thing people sometimes want to keep is the shin guards so that they don't cause out too much injury. But to be honest, those shin guards, more than anything, they kind of protect against cuts. They don't really. I mean, as you've seen, I mean, we've had people sent to orbit with shin guards on. So
exactly. And that's usually what gloves do, right? They kind of protect against shin guards and protect against cuts.
And those shin guards are pretty thin, so
right.
They're like socks.
One of the last amateur fights, there's 3 more that we got to talk about. One of the last ones is Kosarov Sadarov. Is Kosarov or Hasarov? How do you pronounce that?
It's Khosrov.
Khosarov.
Khosrov.
Yeah, I'll never get that right. Khosarov Sadarov. That kid, he is back. He's the master of spinning shit.
Yeah.
He's super exciting to watch. I'm so glad he's back with the promotion.
He's very
He
talented. Very talented
yes.
kid.
He's fighting the kid out of Blackbeard. And I say kid, I'm sorry if I'm using this word and you guys don't like to hear it. I apologize. I mean, obviously, you guys are all men. He's fighting
Young
Jesse
fighter.
Batista.
Yeah.
Jesse Batista was at the training session that I went to.
Right.
He looked good. He looked dedicated to his craft. I can't wait to watch this fight because when we watched Sadarov actually take a loss because we've seen him. I believe he's 1-1, right, in Fighters Rep.
He's 1-1.
Okay. So the fight where I saw him, I believe he lost to Cy Hansen.
That was a very close and sloppy fight. And
yeah, it was like
I think the winner,
fight.
the winner in that fight was basically determined by, I mean, obviously by some skill, but also by they were fouling each other left and right. They didn't like each other, and that obviously had an effect, I think, on that fight. I wish they would have both just fought a cleaner fight without all the hostility, but it happens sometimes,
Yeah, I can't wait to see him back now, to see him put on the action, man. That's he's a fun fighter to watch.
Yeah.
Jesse Batista, I'm really interested to see what he brings to the game. How many fights does he have? Is he new to fighting?
Jesse, I think he's had 2 fights. So I mean, they're very close as far as experience goes. And I love the fact that he's coming out of Blackbeard Kickboxing again. Coach Jason Codwell. I mean, he's a kickboxing guy. So and Jos is a guy who I'll let you in on a little secret. Besides the fact that one of his main coaches is a Savat guy. The French kickboxing. So shout out to him, Coach Tony. But the other one for his boxing was Roman Carmozan, a Russian former champion in boxing, pro boxing. Okay. You may have heard of him or not. And now he's kind of put it all together with Team Victory over with Crew Rod. That's where he's at now. So Jos has a lot of talent, a lot of experience. And I look forward to seeing how that translates against another very talented kid, and Jesse Batista again out of Blackbeard Kickboxing. Okay, Jason Caldwell's school is a kickboxing school, so this is going to be 2 very high level young amateurs here.
It's a fun one to watch.
Big time.
All right, here goes one more from Blackbeard.
Yeah.
Okay, and I cannot tell you how amped I am. I went to Blackbeard, and there was 5, I believe it was 4 guys coming out of Blackbeard. Codwell, Enrique Cortez, Jesse Batista, Pacheco is coming out of Blackbeard, and then there's this other kid that's fighting in this next fight we're going to talk about, Joshua Codwell.
The brother of Jason Caldwell.
Okay, he's a brother. I was wondering if he was a son or how they were related. Let me just say, if you were going to build the fighter, or what you want the fighter to look like, how you want him to look in practice, Caldwell is the guy that you want him to look like. This kid looks like a legit, like some fighters just don't got the look. This kid got the look. And I can't wait to see him. He's fighting David Rivera. And I know you are a David Rivera guy, as far as you've always pumped him up. And
he's a great fighter. He's a great fighter.
You go back and watch his highlights. You can YouTube that shit. David Rivera has some awesome highlights.
Yeah.
I can't wait for this fight. I think this, once again, a fight of the night contender. If you arrive late and this fight happens before you get there,
out. You missed out. Yeah, you messed up bad. These 2 are great kids. These are 2 great amateur fighters, man, that are just the absolute, highest level amateurs in the region. They just need more experience. I mean, these are 2 guys I would love to keep busy. David Rivera, I constantly fighting with him. Take the fights, take them, and I just kind of met Joshua Caldwell, so I can't say the same for him, but I know how talented he is because, his brother told me how talented he is. And he's got that lineage. I mean, when your brother owns a kickboxing gym, and you look the way he looks, He's shredded. He's in incredible shape. I mean, this
Shredded.
is going to be this is going to be. I mean, this is a elite level amateur fight. This is a pro level fight. Either one of these kids would take a pro fight right now and beat the shit out of most people their weight class. So,
I definitely think David Rivera is right there.
mhm.
Maybe he wants to hold off because maybe he can't be. I know he likes to do MMA too.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
maybe he doesn't want to like start in his pro MMA career, but I think he's ready to be a pro. I can't
yeah.
wait to watch this fight. All right, the last fight, and the amateurs at least. It's for.
Amateur
I'll let you discuss it. But Oscar Moeller, or is it Moeller or Muller?
Mueller.
Mueller. There you go, man.
Mueller.
See, I'm sucking with names. Versus Joshua Jenkins.
Yeah.
Man, I am an Oscar Mueller fan. I know I can't get his name right to save my life. This guy, whenever he contacts me on social media or when he contacts me to get his pictures, because I usually even when we fight Fighters Rep, even though we post them on Facebook.com, on the Facebook Fighters Rep Facebook, these guys they hit me up and they're like, hey,
Yeah.
do you have any of those pictures? He couldn't be nicer. I
Yeah,
love this
yeah.
kid. And when you watch his fights, they're all action. You tell me the boring Oscar
No,
Mueller
there's
fight.
no such thing. There's no such thing as a boring Oscar Mueller fight.
I can't wait for this one. What's going on? What's at stake in this fight? Do they have
And
a title at stake?
well, yes, they do. And there's no such thing as a boring Joshua Jenkins fight either. You may recognize the name. He's fought for us before, and he beat Eric Sandoval
Oh,
when he fought for us before,
out of
and
Kings
he's
MMA.
yeah, and he's very strong and he's very technical. He trains under Blitz Muay Thai coach Jason Childers, and Oscar Mueller's Oscar Mueller. Oscar in this fight is going in with more experience, right? He's the more experienced guy. But Joshua Jenkins, 4-0, I think 5-0 when you look at you know everything across the board. He doesn't know how to lose, and he's a
Right.
young, hungry, upcoming, physically strong, physical specimen. And Oscar Mueller is the experienced guy. You know, and it's two just beasts. I mean, you've seen the condition Oscar Mueller's in too. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's just two animals colliding, and there's a 147-pound fighters rep / IKF Southern Regional title on the line for this fight. Basically, when Evan Bolton became pro, he was supposed to go pro on this card. He's basically vacating that strap by going pro. Although now that he's not going pro, I don't know what's going to happen with that. But nonetheless, it's been approved. It's for a 147-pound Southern Regional title, IKF and Fighters Rep Kickboxing. And there's a lot at stake here. There is a lot at stake here, and this is just a great fight. I mean, Oscar Mueller's fought everyone in and around the weight class. All his fights have been great. He's had a couple, he's had a title opportunity in the past, I believe, but I've always told him I think kickboxing is his wheelhouse as much as he loves Muay Thai. I think just his style of constantly coming forward, his cardio, I think kickboxing is the rule set for him. I find him to be a handful for anybody in kickboxing because they're not allowed to clinch him. They got to fight him. And
Right.
the only person that's been able to overcome him in the Lions Den, and it was just barely, was Wilson Ha, who's now already turned pro. So Oscar
Right.
Mueller's still an amateur. And again, Joshua Jenkins, fantastic talent. I'm telling you, fantastic talent. Undefeated, coming out of Blitz Muay Thai. Really excited about this fight. And I'm expecting a 5-round war between these two.
Man, I can't wait for that fight.
Yeah.
I'm a big Oscar Mueller fan. Ever since that Wilson Ha fight, Wilson Ha versus Oscar Mueller, I believe they were the first ones. Fighters Rep 5, right? Were they the first ones to headline, or was that Fighters Rep 6? It was one of them.
I believe I don't remember now. I think it was 6.
But
I think it was
yeah,
6.
because I know Wilson Ha headlined both, and Mueller was one of his opponents.
Yeah, I
And
think it was 6. I think
yeah,
it was 6.
he was exciting that fight. That was a tremendous fight. But now we are done with the amateurs. We got 3 pro fights to talk about. They were all
Man.
exciting. I mean, dude, this first one that we're gonna mention, he's a star of Fighters Rep 11. I mean, he came out of nowhere, you know. And I'm not even talking about the guy who had the best fight, because that's David Pacheco. I'm talking about
Yeah,
Vinnie Pham. I'm talking
Vinnie
about the guy who
Pham.
stole the show. Nobody could stop talking about him. And I want to clear something up that a lot of people, I know that you're his promoter, and he's a good guy. A lot of people were talking mad shit about this kid. You know, when he beat uh, Gabriel Silva, they were
Yeah,
saying, "Oh, well, it's just Silva's kid. You know, he's no good." You have no idea how good Gabriel Silva is. Gabriel Silva
yeah, he's
is a
really good.
fucking assassin, and
Yeah, he is.
and Vinny Pham came out of, you know, just super aggressive. I can't wait for his fight. Tell us all about this fight, Vinny Pham
Uh,
versus Robert Ortiz. I'm unfamiliar with Robert Ortiz, so you got to educate me.
okay, so Vinnie Pham versus Robert Ortiz is this is as close to 50-50 as you're going to find, Marco. This fight terrifies me. I think of this fight when I go to bed. This is how scary, entertaining, and nerve-wracking this fight is. Both guys, Vinny Pham coming off that win over Gabe Silva, as you mentioned, looked incredible in getting that knockout. He's a guy with so much experience, and what kind of springboarded him into this pro debut was that win. I mean, I told him, listen, you won the IKF West Coast title. What's there left to do for you in the amateurs? There's nothing left for you to do. He's had, 10, 15 fights. It was time. And we found another guy with a lot of amateur experience that was just itching to go pro out of Buena Park Martial Arts, Coach Pot, Coach Matthew Johnson, Robert Ortiz. Now, let me tell you about Robert Ortiz. They're the same height. They're almost the same guy. I would say that
That's scary.
Vinny, I would say that Vinny is probably, and you've seen how strong Vinny is.
Right.
You've seen how strong he is. I would say Vinny is probably the more dynamic as far as fluidity. But I might have to say, as far as strength, it might be Robert in this fight. And he's incredibly strong and durable, as is Vinny. So that's why this fight gives me a lot of pause, because these are two rocks. I mean, these guys are two rocks. And just to let you know where Robert Ortiz is at as far as his skills go and his accomplishments, he was a champion in the amateurs, and he beat John Garcia.
Oh
He
wow,
beat John the
that's a
Caveman
big
Garcia.
name.
Yeah. And he beat him for a title. And he's also got some boxing amateur pedigree. He's had MMA fights, he's done Muay Thai, but he's also done some boxing. So this fight for me, man, is just I mean, these guys are just strong. You just look at them, and they're heavy-handed. They're built like rocks. It's going to be like two boulders smashing into each other. I'm telling you. And both guys, I mean, it's funny. Steve De La Paz, Vinny's coach, said it's going to be felon fights. I mean, I think both guys have been in the system. Both guys are forged, you know, in very tough circumstances, Marco. Then this is going to be, I'm telling you, this is a terrifying fight. I'm very excited to see who wins, but these are two rocks, man. These are two
Right,
rocks.
man. I can tell you, I'm super excited because Vinny's, you know, I don't care about. I'm not the promoter. I'm not the guy who actually has to worry about being friendly with people. I'm a Vinny fan. Like, he's just
Yeah,
such a good dude. Every time I've talked to him, like when I interviewed him, he carried the interview, and that means a lot to me. You know, like he was very friendly with my children. I had to bring my children to go interview him, and he couldn't have been
yeah.
a nicer dude. You
Oh,
know, because
he's
I know,
incredible. He's incredible.
yeah,
And that's why I have such an affinity for them and for this fight, because Robert Ortiz is also a good dude.
right.
They'll
No,
they'll
I
they'll they'll, they'll beat you to death, I'm sure, if you fought them, because they're both absolute killers in the ring. But as far as men, as far as gentlemen, they're incredible people,
Man, when you tell me right now that he beat John Garcia, go back and watch John Garcia versus Milton Aguayo. That'll give you some
bro.
respect for John Garcia. So if
Yeah,
you tell
John
me that Robert
Garcia.
Ortiz got a win over him, I definitely want to watch. And speaking of that real quick, just two seconds on that. That was an awesome fight. You brought up John
That
Garcia's
was.
name. You've had some great fights for Fighters Rep, George. We
Thank you,
got two
man.
more fights to go over, and there are two more killer fights. The next guy to bring up, man, he's been with us the last two fights in a row, or two shows in a row, is Conor Bracken. And
Wow.
he's facing a guy out of Team Classic, Ed Hyman.
Yep.
But Conor Bracken, man, he's a guy. He's an awesome show.
He's turning into a star, isn't he?
Yes.
He's turning into a star, that guy. You know, he's a menace. He goes in there and he walks forward, and, you know, you think he's messing around. He's got a mullet. And he comes out to Phil Collins, and he's got his skull T-shirt with the mullet on it. He calls it a skullet. And you think he's messing around, but he's training out of Johnson on the Wooden Man gym. One of the greatest Muay Thai fighters to ever live is his coach. And he gets in there and he walks forward and he comes for you nonstop for 9 minutes. And you just gotta, you're either going to deal with it or you're going to break. And, you know, he's a terrifying guy. I mean, I don't know if you saw the lead up that we did with him where he said he enjoys hurting people and he's violence embodied. And, you know, his guidance counselor, he said on social media, my guidance counselor told me one time, hey, you can't just hang out with your friends and get into fights all the time. And he says, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Can't hang out with your friends and get into fights all the time.
Listen, the guy's a character, but don't let it fool you. This guy is a special fighter. This guy walks forward, and this guy's a buzzsaw, and he's still putting it together. He's still figuring out his style. He's getting better every fight. He looked better in the last one than he did against Eddie Jackson in a fight that, to be honest, I thought he probably won that fight. So, you know, for me, he's looked great in his last couple fights. And he looked better in the last one. And he's fighting a guy in Ed Hyman. I don't know if you know about this. Ed Hyman is an absolute beast, Marco. Okay. Ed Hyman is a guy who made his kickboxing debut against Matt the Butcher Baker in Glory, who's actually a teammate of Conor Bracken. Okay. Matt Baker still fights for Glory. He's a 6'6" monster with an 81-inch reach. And Ed Hyman gave him everything he could handle in that debut fight. And it could have gone either way. And then Hyman went on to do MMA fights. But this guy can strike. I mean, again, he fought one of the best kickboxers in the world, and Matt Baker, who just happens to be Conor Bracken's teammate over at Wooden Man Muay Thai. So, you know, Ed Hyman's thinking revenge. And you know, Conor Bracken is probably saying to himself, my teammate beat this guy. This guy's going to come for me to get that revenge. And I got to not only beat him for myself, but for my team. I can't let him get that one back, you know. And obviously, he's going to be compared to Matt the Butcher Baker after this performance as well. And he's not going to want to, you know, play second fiddle to anyone. I mean, you know, I know they're teammates, but he's going to want to say, oh, I beat him better than my teammate beat him, you know. So Conor Bracken, man, Ed Hyman, this is an incredible fight. And let's not forget Classic Fight Team, where Ed Hyman is training out of, man. I mean, Tyler Wombles is one of the best coaches on the planet. I mean, the Paez brothers train out of there. Right. TJ Dillashaw trains out of there. Chris Cully was cornered by Tyler Wombles. You know, Ed Hyman is just another one, and a long list of incredible fighters that are training out of Classic Fight Team. So this is a heavy matchup, and it's 185 pounds. These guys are going to weigh 200 pounds
big boys
plus on the night. Yeah,
man, I can tell you, I agree with you about Team Classic, man. I know when the guys, I'm a big fan of this fighter that she fights in MMA. Her name's Kay Hansen. She went to Team Classic.
There you go. You go.
And I knew when she got there, I go, you know, like she must be real talented because they just don't let anybody go there. David Rivera's out of Team Classic. Chris Coley, like you say, like they have a lot of killers that train there. Yeah, so when I saw that, I actually saw Ed Hyman from Team Classic
and Tyler Smith
who fought Conor Bracken the last fight.
Who fought Conor Bracken, right? So there's a lot of backstory on this fight and a lot of a lot of pride on the line, you know, and I'm really looking forward to this fight, man.
Where's Conor from? What Muay Thai? What is that? Sacramento?
It's up in San Francisco,
Okay, so
I
I
believe. Yeah,
imagine there's a lot of people in San Francisco that can't make it down to watch the fights. You know how they can watch the fights? They can join the Fighters Rep YouTube
that's
channel for
right.
$9.99. There's going to be links below on the description. Just click on those links, you join. And I'll tell you what, George is a great guy. He always tells people, hey, you can watch the fight and you can cancel anytime you want. And then, I wouldn't. I would keep right on because all that money goes right back into promoting these fighters. Uh, I can tell you,
And
if you click
paying
on,
them, and paying
yeah,
them.
exactly. It goes back into the business, but I can tell you, if you watch the fight and you really like it, he's going to put on another fight in 2 months. I think I seen your schedule, right? You're every 2 months almost this year. You're putting on 4
Pretty
fights.
much, yeah, pretty
That's what we're
much,
hoping for. So
pretty
I
much.
mean, I would definitely keep the subscription, but if you wanted to, you can cancel. I wouldn't do that. That'd be silly.
And we put up content almost
Right.
daily. So,
Tons of
I try to
content.
make it we try to make it worth everybody's while
Uh,
to continue and support the promotion. And because, we are going to use the money to pay the fighters and to give them more opportunities. So
And if
that's
you
what
can
it's all
tell
about.
if you can tell me another promotion that's on the same level as you, that's been doing it as long as you, that's doing what you're doing for the fighters, as far as interviews, as far as uh, uh, promoting them, I'd like to know because I haven't met that person yet.
I
I
appreciate
think you're
that.
doing a
Thank you,
great job at
Marco.
that. But join the Fighters Rep YouTube channel, $9.99, especially if you live in San Francisco and you want to support Conor Bracken. That's a great way to do it. If you live out in Riverside and you want to support the Blackbeard kickboxing, and you can't make it down. If maybe you're afraid of Omicron, which doesn't make you a bad person. Nobody knows
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
We're all just kind of winging this. But join the Fighters Rep YouTube channel, man. It's $10. It's the price of a Big Mac. How about you have some spaghetti that night and you don't have to buy the Big Mac and you can watch some fights. You can support the
That's
fighters.
right. That's
It,
right.
it'd be awesome. Yeah, I think just real quick before we go over the main event, I'm friendly with another YouTube creator. He does a lot of UFC commentary and he has a membership. It's only like $3. Not a whole lot to it, like he doesn't offer fights like how you offer fights. And he doesn't support, like he doesn't, but he's covering events. He's doing what he makes him happy. And all these guys that they go, oh, $3, that's so much money. And it's like, hey, look, if you support these guys, if you want to support them, this is less than the cost of a hamburger.
Right, right. I mean,
Like, you're being silly.
I'm offering the people the opportunity to not just, support me, but to support
Right.
the fighters and support the promotion and build a promotion. Like you have a
Right.
hand in helping build a kickboxing promotion, a sport that everybody thought was extinct, and we've kind of we've resurrected it into this, amazing promotion here in California. And, we're flying fighters in from Colorado like we did with Justin Moss, and we're creating champions and we're building the best, I think the best region in the world as far as strikers goes. And, it's for $9.99 a month. I mean, it's
for $9.99, and let's talk about this last presentation. The last we've changed people who do the actual live stream. You've stepped it up there. We got a great presentation they put on this last show.
and
I
it's
look
only going to
forward to
get
seeing
better. It's only going to get
exactly.
better.
I look forward to the improvements. Every show is an improvement. I just talked to the guys too. We went to an event that was on the 30th,
Yeah.
and it was funny because he saw me. And I always trip out when people remember you. Like even though I just worked with them like a month ago, it's like, hey, Fighters Rep, dude, we're Team Fighters Rep. It's like I can't wait to put on the show. It's gonna be a live stream, because this one was recorded. He goes, oh, this is practice. It's nothing like Fighters Rep. I can't wait to put it on. I thought that was pretty awesome.
That's cool.
But yeah, just wanted to mention that if you join the YouTube channel, $9.99, FightersRep.com, get your tickets. The last one, the main event, man. I'm gonna let you talk about this one because this is your guy. This is the guy who put on the show. The guy who, and all right, I gotta cheat. I gotta talk a little bit about it. I was photographing. I was on top of the ring when David Pacheco got knocked down by Andrew Nguyen. Yeah. I saw his face. I thought in my head,
it's over.
I thought this fight is
over.
done.
Yeah.
Why? I didn't say why would they let it continue, but I just thought in my head like he was gone. He wasn't like flash knockdown. He was out on his feet basically when he got up.
Right.
You can take it from there, George. You can tell me how great of a fighter David Pacheco is, because
I
that fight was
mean,
amazing. Hands down, hats off to Andrew Nguyen, man. That was an awesome fight.
yeah. I mean, he came back from the dead in that fight. I thought exactly what you thought. I was sitting there ringside. I saw him get up like this. He didn't know where he was when he got up, and for him to come back, knock Andrew Nguyen through the ropes, then Andrew Nguyen gets back up. They beat each other for another 2 rounds. They take it to the last round, and for Pacheco to get the finish after getting dropped that heavy in the opening round, it's just I tell people it was like a kickboxing Gotti versus Ward. I mean, I've never, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I'm this is hyperbole or I'm exaggerating. It was really one of the best fights I've ever seen. And again, I'm not just saying that because it's my show. I mean, the amount of heart it took, the amount of what kind of condition was Pacheco in to come back from that heavy of a shot? He took the heaviest shot Andrew Nguyen can give, got up and won the fight somehow. And he took heavy shots after that knockdown. I mean, they were just going back and forth, rock 'em, sock 'em. I don't know if you remember, Marco. The
Yeah,
arena was going. People were going nuts in there. I
that
mean,
was
you
the
couldn't hear
wildest
anything.
ever been. I
Yeah,
can guarantee you, George. I know that the number of people was much less because it's 1,000-seat capacity.
yeah.
It was way louder than anything at the UFC. And
Wow.
I'm not saying that to be hyperbole. I'm saying I was there.
Yeah.
Brandon Moreno did draw a lot of fans. Outside of that David Pacheco fight, I've never heard it. Between that and the Vinnie Pham knockout, I've never heard louder crowds. That was
Yeah.
just amazing.
That Vinnie Pham knockout was insane as well. And so I made this fight coming up. Let's talk about this fight for this main event. I made it for David Pacheco versus Darren Smith. It was going to be for a fighters rep title, and Darren Smith had to drop off. And I didn't want to take the title shot away from David Pacheco because I feel like he's earned it, right? Especially in the sport of kickboxing. I mean, he's had Muay Thai fights, he's had MMA fights, he's fought some of the best people. He fought Charles Rockstar Rodriguez, who was an absolute beast, and fought for glory and making his MMA debut soon as well. He's fought Miguel El Mogdisi, he's fought Bellator, he's fought everywhere. And I said, I want to give David a title fight. I feel like he's earned it, especially since he's dedicating himself to kickboxing, and there's not too many people that I think can beat him in this division at this time. So Darren Smith fell out. I looked for a replacement, and who steps up? Diego Perez out of Chad George's CMMA. And Diego, is a guy with 4 MMA fights. But, and I don't think he hasn't even had a pro striking fight. But the fact that he would step up late notice and take on a guy like David Pacheco, I said, you know what? I'm going to leave this for a title. I'm not going to pull the title away for this. This guy deserves, for the courage that he's showing me, he deserves it. And you know what? Chad George believes that they're going to win by knockout. They believe they're going to win by knockout. That's how much confidence he has in Diego. He's telling me he's in there sparring the best guys in the gym. As you know, Victor Henry trains out of that gym. I mean,
A lot of great
Ozzy
fighters came
Diaz.
out
I
of that
mean, yeah,
gym.
Bruno Souza trains out of that gym. I mean, Weber Almeida trains out of that gym. I mean, Chad George is a heavy hitter at this point. And for him to say, we're going for the damn knockout and we think we're going to get it, and he tells me this kid is fast, this kid is hungry, this kid is a striker who's kind of been pigeonholed into MMA like so many of these other guys. This is going to be, I mean, I think we're going to see another potential crazy win versus Pacheco fight. I mean, this could easily turn into another one of those,
We
Marco,
we know
because
Pacheco's game.
right, because Pacheco walks forward. And
Right.
you're either going to turn his lights out or he's going to turn your lights out.
Right. He doesn't have the best defense. He does get hit.
Right, but
But
he's
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 all
just
offense.
he's just crazy durable. He's like the Grim Reaper. I mean, you got to you got to kill him, and you can't kill him. So this is going to be an incredible main event. It's for a fighters rep state super middleweight title, and I hope that the winner of this fight will get to fight Justin Moss for the national title, right?
That
Because
would
he
be
won the
awesome.
national title when he fought Chris Cully. And so the winner of this will be the state title holder. And we hope to do a unification fight after this,
Yeah,
if
that,
everything
that would
works
be
out.
awesome to see if that develops. Justin Moss had an awesome fight with Chris Coley.
Right.
Um,
But
thank you.
listen, do not sleep on this fight, man. This fight is
No,
going to
definitely
be
not.
this
Uh,
fight.
we-
I got a feeling. Let me tell you, when I have a feeling about a fight, it usually comes true. I got a feeling about this fight.
it's like the mess. I sent you a text message the other day, and like I told you, I go that there's been fights that fell off. There's a couple fights I don't want to bring them up because I want people to be happy when they come out, even though they've already been advertised. But there've been some fights that fell off. I was super excited about,
Yeah.
and I really hope they come back. I sent you a message. I go, look, there's still 13 fights I think scheduled for this card, right?
And I think it might be the best, and I think it's still the best card we've ever had.
I would say 10 of them, and that's not to say the other 3 are bad.
Yeah.
10 of them I cannot wait for.
Yeah.
I cannot. I mean, I followed these fighters, so I know how good they are. I understand not everybody's gonna know exactly what I know. They don't go to every card. 10 of these fights are just gonna be explosive. They're just like I said, like Edgar Zaragoza versus Melvin Guerra. It's not buried on the card, but I mean, it's not one of the pro fights. It's way below.
Right.
There's other, it's not one of the title fights.
Right.
You cannot miss this fight. You cannot miss that fight. You cannot miss the Cam Spencer fight. You cannot miss, guys. You've got to.
And it's all about levels, Marco. It's all about
Yeah.
levels and matching. You match guys up that are on the same level, and
Right.
that's the formula for getting the results that we've gotten. And all these guys on this next card are on the same level. And it's when you put a guy in there to fight another guy that's on his level, it's going to bring the best out of the guys, and that's why you've been seeing what you've seen on the Fighters Rep cards, and that's what you're going to see in this one. And I do think this is the best card we've put together to date.
I can't wait, man. February 18th. Buy your tickets, get the live stream. It's gonna be a show. George, I want to thank you, man. When I started doing this, I got together, and I actually, it was from the other YouTuber that I was telling you about. I just watched a lot of his content, and I go, you know what he doesn't do is he does a lot of the on-camera stuff. You do that too, but you do interviews, and I've always liked your show. I've always liked your interviews. I think you're a great interviewer.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I really got inspired. I go, hey, you know what? I want to get into this too. I want to be able to talk to people, and I got anxiety issues, and I wanted to do it with somebody I knew I could talk to and just talk about fights that I knew I was excited about.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on, and I had a great time talking to you, Joe. I look forward to Fighters Rep 12, February 18th, man. I get your tickets. The links are down below. I would definitely not miss this one.
Don't miss it, man. And I appreciate you showing love to Fighters Rep and to me and to the fighters and to the sport of kickboxing. This is the best for me. This is the most exciting combat sport. I'm gonna show everybody why again. We're gonna show everybody why over and over again, and we're gonna show it on next Friday. People are gonna see why.
Can't wait to see it. Hey, I want to give a special shout out to somebody. Ivan Calderon, man. He runs the Fighters Rep Instagram. That guy freaking works overtime, man. Like, I really love following that. He does as professional a job. Follow the Fighters Rep Instagram page. George can be found at Fighters Rep Fez. But the Fighters Rep Instagram stays up to date. It's got multiple daily updates, shows everything that's going on, all the fights that are up to date. He has plenty of footage. There's a lot of footage that comes out of the fighters training. There's a lot of
subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't just follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube channel because that's where we put our in-depth content.
Yeah, definitely. And then not just subscribe, you got to join. I mean, subscribing helps. That builds your membership, but you join and you're really supporting the community.
That's right.
It's the price of a Big Mac. It's the price of an In-N-Out. Have some spaghetti, man. It doesn't cost that much. I watched that not Dana White. It's Dana White, the YouTube one where he shows about food. He had that top ramen with peanut butter. Yeah, go ahead and have that for a day.
That looked good.
Yeah. Have that for a day, and you can afford to make your purchase because it's just $10, $9.99. You're gonna get your value. Thank you, George, for joining me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Marco, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, bro.